Close enough. Okay, my Indian accent's not that great.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest in the CBAA webinars, brought to you with the help and support of our good friends of the CMTO, the Community Media Training Organisation. You can find out more about them at cmto.org.au. Tonight's topic is the fundamentals of digital audio editing, the fundamentals of free and easy digital audio editing, if you will. Proficiency in audio editing is essential for creating professional audio. The session is going to look at the basic fundamentals of audio editing and utilise open source software. Participants should hopefully have downloaded a copy of Audacity. There is a link for that. It's the first thing in the instant message box. And the third thing in the instant message box is a link to a Dropbox account set up by our good friends at the CMTO with materials for this evening's webinar. So if you haven't grabbed those, download them if you can. I would suggest that this session will be valuable for you, even if you haven't had a chance to get that material. Quick bit of housekeeping before I hand it over to the CMTO crew. You'll notice up there on the screen at the moment we've got our upcoming webinars, 22nd of February, Easy Tricks to Grow Your Music Program and Network. That's all about building a strong network of relationships with musicians and their representatives to help you raise the profile of your program, get the artists you love involved, and reduce prep time. We're going to learn how to forge and maintain those relationships, develop a strong identity and reputation for your program, and hear from community broadcasters who've used their network to expand their audience and reach. It's on 22nd of February. And then coming up on the 8th of March, your guide to contributing to the National Features and Documentary Series. This is a series that aims to encourage storytelling from new and emerging producers around Australia. The session will look at some previous entries in the NFDS series as a way of moving forward, and is perfect for presenters and program makers who are creating vibrant spoken word content. So I'm going to switch the screen now over to Geordie from the CMTO, seeing as I've done myself. Nicola, I'm assuming that was you laughing at me.
I'm laughing because Graham has put up in the chat box, Danny, will you marry me? Just while
I make my decision on that one.
I guess that's based on the fact that you read that so well. Geordie is going to run the session tonight because she's in at the office. I'm actually at home looking after my 92-year-old mother who's just got out of hospital. But this is the beauty of webinars in that we can attend from lots of different places. And as long as Danny's remembered to press the record button, it is recorded and you can come back to it. Can I just, before Geordie comes on, say that when Danny first proposed this webinar to me, I thought he was crazy. And I still do think he's crazy, Graham, so I would steer away from the idea of hitching up with him. And because it's actually quite challenging for us to teach this over the internet. And really the way it's going to work for you is that Geordie is going to run us through the paces, and you're going to actually practice it at the moment. Like, we'll do one exercise at a time, but I strongly advise everyone to spend some time doing it after we log off, because it's only an hour session. And the learning of this actually comes from simply doing it. And I can say that as an old person who used reel-to-reel tape and razor blades, that when digital editing first came out, I wasn't actually working at a radio station, but I wanted to learn it because I knew it was going to be important. So I just downloaded, I didn't download, you couldn't in those days. I bought a CD of Adobe Audition, which was called Cool Edit back then, and I made myself learn. And the thing is that you can just about Google these days with most of the well-known software, videos of how to do it, and also places to solve problems when things go wrong. So it really has to be seen as being the beginning of your learning tonight, not it's not going to be something that at the end of this session you're going to be able to do just without actually making a commitment to practicing it afterwards. So I'm going to hand over to Geordie, and she's going to take us through the technical stuff in the office, and I think we're being inventive about how you're going to hear her computer play back. So, I might sort of fill some gaps when Geordie's actually got her microphone at the speakers of the computer.
That's great. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks, Danny. Welcome, everyone. We've got lots of people in the room tonight, and it's fantastic to see so many people interested in this topic, so we're excited to give you some basics. So I thought we might start off just with a bit of a poll so I can get an idea of who's who in the room and what your experience is. So as you're chatting in the chat box, let us know what station you're from, because we'd love to know where everyone's tuning in from tonight. And if you could also do the poll that I'm just about to put up on the screen, it's asking you if you've done any digital audio editing before. So I've just put it up on the screen. So just tick the one that is most relevant to you. Excellent. Oh, good. Everyone's telling us where they're from. We've got Joy FM, we've got Alpine Radio, Mareeba in Far North Queensland, the Upper Murray, Tiger in Tasmania, Albury, Vision Radio, Tubob, hello Tubob, Coast FM on Central Coast, New South Wales. Hi Crystal, Triple Z, we've got 3WBC, Art Sound, Radio Nambucca, heaps of people. Okay, so just a few more votes to come in, so let us know where you're from and let us know what your experience is. Okay, I'm feeling a bit more confident now that my skills are going to be sufficient to show you the poll, because show you the skills tonight. I'm just going to close that poll. It should come up on the screen. So it looks like we have about 36% of people who have done quite a bit of editing, so that's good. If you have any tips and tricks as we go along, put them into the chat box. And we've got 51%, so just over half of you have done some editing, but you're a novice. And then we have 13% who have never done any editing. So that's kind of good. Those people who've never done any editing before, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed as we go through these things, just take a moment and ask us questions whenever you can, and also remember that the resources that we've put up are available to you afterwards, so you can have a bit of a practice and have a go afterwards if you don't quite get it during the session. And of course you can go back and listen to the session because it will be recorded as well. Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask was whether you have editing software accessible at your station. So I'm just putting another poll up on the screen at the moment, if you wouldn't mind answering it. So I've put a couple of options up there of different audio editing software that's quite common in the community broadcasting sector. Just wanted to get an idea if anybody has access to these at their station, so we can kind of see what people are using. That would be great. So just put your response in there. And just excuse me too, I might lose my voice every now and then. So if Nicola might jump in or Danny might jump in and fill in for me. Okay, so just about everyone's voted now. Interesting results coming in on this one. Welcome, Maisie. Good. Yeah. So it's nice. Okay. I'll just leave it open for a few more seconds. Okay.
That's very interesting for us.
It is, yeah. So we've got a result of 70% of participants here using Audacity, and that's great because that's one of the ones that we're going to have a look at this evening. And then we've got 54% using Adobe Audition or Cool Pro. So yeah, Cool Pro is definitely the one that I learnt on, as Nicola mentioned, and Adobe Audition is quite common in the sector. So 3% on Pro Tools, I would have thought that would be a little bit higher. And then we've got 10% for other. Some people are putting in the chat box what they've been using at the station. I think we have a few different studio recorder. Yeah, it's coming through. I haven't used that one. Nicola, have you?
No, I haven't. No, I've actually never even heard of it. So that's interesting. No one's using Hindenburg. So towards the end, I might just add a little bit about Hindenburg, which is kind of interesting because I was looking at it again today.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, that's great to see. We've got some information now about what people are using. I'm just going to go through some basics around the editing just to get you sort of inspired and thinking about it, one of the things we thought about in particular to do with this session this evening was the fact that lots of people are moving now to making their program from home more and more often, because you can have those facilities in terms of using an editing suite at home to make your program at home, so you don't necessarily have to go into the station so often. So that might be one reason that you might need to have some editing skills. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I've put up on the screen there. So, you know, if you have any other reasons that you might need to do editing, let us know, or any way that you're using editing at the moment that maybe we haven't mentioned would be great. One of the ones I just wanted to highlight there was legal reasons. So that's one of the legal reasons and obscenities. I guess they kind of go together. One of the reasons that we do pre-recorded interviews and are able to edit is because it does help us make sure that we are not caught in any sort of defamation problems or actions around that. So it means that we get to vet the content before we put it to air, which can be really important for us as community broadcasters, because we don't always have an editor or a program manager at the station giving us advice as we go to air, and a lot of our stations don't have dump buttons either, so sometimes if we're doing a live interview that can be a little bit risky depending on what topic we're doing, so sometimes a pre-recorded interview is the way to go. It also means that you can polish that interview up and you can make it sound just a little bit more tight, so that when it goes to air it takes up a bit less time and gets to the point more easily. The other one that's becoming increasingly popular is making features and documentaries, and we've had a real resurgence of that in the community broadcasting sector at the moment, particularly with the National Features and Documentary Series and the CRN Segments series as well. People are really getting into the idea of making packages. So having some editing skills, even basic ones, can really make some of the content that you have come to life. And Nicola and I have really seen some incredible results of people who've never edited before come in with some amazing ideas, spend a little bit of time using these editing software and create incredible stuff, particularly just using something as simple as Audacity, which we'll show you in a moment. So I just wanted to highlight some of the ethics around editing that's important for us to keep in mind when we're actually doing this kind of work, and that is, I guess, that we have a responsibility to whoever we're interviewing or whoever we've recorded to be true to the meaning of what they said. So that's, I guess, an ethical consideration, is that we don't change what someone has said through the editing process. Of course, you know, we're I guess, regulating ourselves when it comes to that. And another important thing is
Giordana,
yeah?
sorry, can I just interrupt for a sec? It's hard to find that breath just to do that edit with you. You know, we're going to talk about listening to the breaths. We can all see is the poll. You need to kill the poll, as they say. Yeah. There's a way of hiding it somehow. That's it. I didn't want you to waste your good PowerPoint.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. All right. So yeah, sorry, those are some of the things that I put up on the screen there. And I guess the other ethical consideration that we might consider, or we need to be aware of, is getting permission to record somebody and also put them to air. So that's an important part of our role as a community broadcaster too, is that when we're actually recording people, that we've got their permission and that we let them know that they're going to be broadcast as well. Okay, so I'm going to take you through a few things, and Nicola's going to jump in and out as well. We're going to look particularly at editing and mixing throughout the session today, and I'll touch very briefly on mastering. We might talk a little bit about some of the some recording stuff as well, just so that it makes your editing a little bit easier. As that. But first, I thought what we should talk about is some of the free tools. Now, most of you seem to be quite aware of Audacity, so that's great. It is available on PC and Mac versions, so that's really good. A lot of you who have a Mac might have GarageBand already, so that's one that you can use. We have a number of people in our courses using GarageBand to do their assessments and to do their editing activities. And another one that I kind of came across today and has, quite good reviews on the internet as well is the WavePad Audio Editor Free, which is actually a mobile version. So you can do some editing on the go on your mobile. So we were talking about the situation where you might go off and record someone on your mobile, because there's quite good apps as well that you can record on now, and you can actually get plug-in microphones for your mobile phone if you have a smartphone, and you can do some editing on the run using something like that. Chris is also telling us that Audacity is on Linux, so that's really good to know as well. There's still some Linux users out there for sure. So yeah, mobile options are becoming a lot more popular, and it's, I guess, the way of the future in terms of the way that we do our recording is using our smartphones as well. Okay, so some of the other options that you might be interested in are a few that I think are interesting, and I know they've had good reviews from people that I've worked with and also online as well. Reaper has a 60-day free trial. And it actually has a price for non-for-profits at $60. These are all in US dollars because I couldn't get my computer to convert them to Australian dollars when I was looking in the carts. But so Reaper is quite good. The other one, which we've all talked about and most people are quite familiar with, is Adobe Audition. They have a month-to-month plan now, and I think Rick Broom actually mentioned in here that you can get a download of Adobe Audition 3, which is one of the older versions, for free, and you could actually just keep that one. It wouldn't have any of the updates that the new Adobe Audition has. Adobe's moved to putting everything in a sort of cloud style, so it would have constant updates throughout it. But yeah, I recommend that one. The other one is Hindenburg Journalist, which Nicola will chat a little bit about later on, and that has a 30-day free trial, and the version, that Hindenburg Journalist version, is actually quite affordable at $95 US. They have other versions that are a bit more complex and have more features which are more than that. And Pro Tools has actually launched Pro Tools Avid, which is a Pro Tools version available on a USB. So you actually have a locked USB that you're able to put it onto, that downloads onto it, and you can move it around different computers. You can try that out with a 30-day free trial. But they also have a month-to-month plan of it as well. I haven't tried it out. I'm not sure what it's like, but I do know that some people who are working for a few of the documentary programs in community radio have tried it out and are using it and find it to be quite good. So kind of some affordable options there. If you have any other ones, let me know and pop them into the chat box and share them with the rest of the room, and we might put together a list later as well. Because, yeah, while it's great to be able to use the free software, you might be wanting to do something a bit more complex, and that's why you'd like to use some of the other software that costs money. But in saying that, Audacity is really capable of making something that's quite complex. Some of the documentaries that were made for the National Features and Documentary Series were made completely on Audacity, and they involved things like sound effects, music beds. They had multiple interviews in them, and all sorts of sort of rich content, voiceovers and things like that as well. So really possible to do that sort of thing on Audacity. It's just getting your head around it and becoming familiar with the software. Anything to add to that, Nicola?
No, but like I'm trying to keep up with the so many questions that are coming through. Just maybe it might be worth us just mentioning that I think it was Jeff said that he used WavePad on his phone for last-minute interviews, so it might be good if we have time to bring him on and tell us a bit about that experience. Quite a few people want the link to Audition 3.0 that someone spoke about, so you can actually cut and paste that link in there if into the chat box for people if you can get hold of it. And Adam asked, is Hindenburg similar to Adobe Audition? It's not, and it's quite a different look, and it may be possible if we have time for Geordie to pull different windows up like Adobe Audition and Hindenburg if she has time. I don't know if it's on your computer there at work, is it? Geordie?
I'll have to check. I'm not sure that it is, but I'll have a look.
I don't think you've installed it yet. But
Yeah.
I think someone else has brought up Logic Pro X,
Oh, yeah.
which I have never used. There's obviously heaps of them. And I think kind of if you're just doing an interview and you want to edit the interview, just about any of the really simple ones are fine. You know, Studio Recorder. I'm reading here that Studio Recorder, you can't save the recording, so that's not much good. But if you want to do something more complex, then you really are looking at programs like Audacity. Peter asks, can music be mixed on it? I'm sure it has been done. I'm always amazed at how people actually get Audacity working so incredibly well in their documentary mixing. So I'm sure it can be done. I think that Audition in the poll that we had earlier was a really popular one, and I think it's definitely one where you can do more sophisticated mixes. And Hindenburg is fairly new, and it's out of all of them the only one that actually has been made for radio production. So, you know, when we use all these other ones, it's fairly evident even when you search the help that they're often talking about music mixes, whereas Hindenburg has actually been developed for radio production, and it includes the kind of pro version actually includes a recorder for Skype if you're going to use Skype in interviews, and it also does some pretty nifty things in regard to podcasting because they are keeping people like us in mind. So so Rick says Google Audition 3 free and you'll find plenty of links. Just find a source you trust and scan the file for viruses after you download it just in case. Okay, there are a lot of out there, but you know, like at the end of the day, I would recommend you downloading the latest version as a free trial, and you know, if you have to, just get a different email address every time and just like keep doing that for a while. I know certainly that in our office at CMTO we do that a lot because we want to use something before we actually invest in it. So you know, you can just kind of extend that by signing up with a different email address. So you get on with it, Geordie.
And you can also, I also was on the internet today looking at YouTube videos of how to get a copy of Adobe Audition free forever. So the latest version. So, you know, I'll leave you guys to explore all the amazing options out there. But yeah, thank you for that link to Audition 3. That's definitely one of the ones that I learnt on to begin with. So it's a great one to, if it's free to download,
it really is.
To have a look at. It's really good.
Is that the link that's in there right now is the link that has a lot of tutorials on it? Is that the one that you're talking about? The soft tonic one?
Soft tonic one.
I'm pretty sure that it does, but it's a really good site for everything, I think. Audition. Oh, right. Yeah. So you sent it to us. Oh, it can be downloaded for free here, or is this the latest version?
I don't know. We might have to just experiment with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That was Bruce Lamb that put that one up.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay. So just moving on from that, and share links and things in the chat box as you go. I know some people are getting quite specific in the questions there, so we'll see how we go getting through to those things.
Oh, there you go. Peter Gill. When they discontinued Audition 3, they issued it for free. You got that from a CMTO trainer, I'd like to say.
Excellent. Thanks, Peter.
Peter's one of our trainers.
Okay, so Danny's going to collate some of those other questions as well as we go along, so we can come back to them. So don't fret if yours hasn't been answered straight away. And I just wanted to mention another couple of things to think about when you're getting yourself together for an editing session and doing some editing. Of course, you want some editing software, but the other important things is to have some speakers and some headphones. So you don't need to have top-of-the-range headphones or anything like that, but because what you want to do is sort of, I guess, simulate what it would be like for a listener listening to your piece, either in some earbuds or on some speakers, be it in the car or the kitchen or that sort of thing. So it's really important to listen to whatever you're editing on a range of different speakers or headphones so that you can sort of hear the things that might not come up if you're listening in really high quality headphones. You might not hear that beautiful mix that you've done if you've just got it on your tinny car speakers later. So have a think about that in terms of that equipment that you might need. The other one is making sure that your computer has the storage space required to either run the software that you have, and there will be recommendations whenever you download the software of what kind of memory you should have, and also you might think about having a external hard drive so that you can save all of your files, because if you're working on a complex piece, you do end up with a lot of audio files, and you're usually working in WAV form, so that's the biggest high quality file that you want to use, and you always want to work in that to begin with before you compress it down to an MP3 if you're going to do that. So you're going to use up a lot of space. So external hard drive or a big USB can come in handy. So in saying that, a USB can be really great because you can move your files around to different computers, particularly handy if you're working between home and the studio or the station. The other thing I recommend is having a buddy who doesn't mind listening to your edits once they're done. It's really good to have somebody, a second pair of ears, to have a listen, because I've often done interviews and edited them up and sort of played them to someone and thinking, yeah, you can hear it. It sounds fine. The sound quality's fine. And then someone will listen and be like, I cannot understand a thing that is being said in that interview. So it's a good idea to get someone to listen to it before you get too far into it too, so that you don't waste so much time on maybe audio that's not so good. Okay, so just some other equipment there that you might need when you're editing. I'll move through to looking at support and tutorials, because I think this is the really important thing to make sure that when you embark on your editing journey that you know where to go to get some help. And the internet is an absolute goldmine of information when it comes to help on different little things when using all of the programs that you might come across, but also in some general things as well. So I've put up on the screen the manual for Audacity, and I'll just bring it up because it's quite amazing. And because Audacity is freeware, and it's also that kind of software where people add their own information to it. It's like a Wikipedia, for instance, for Audacity. It means that this is a very rich source of information on how to use Audacity. So you can just see it on the screen now. It's a web link. It's always there, so you can go and find it on the internet. But when you download Audacity, you also get a copy of the manual, so that way you don't have to be connected to the internet to search their manual as well. So you can see there's a great sort of menu there, but the best part is the tutorials. So I've just brought them up on the page. You can kind of do a whole bunch of things by watching all the different tutorials. So just to let you know that that's there for Audacity, lots of information. Similarly, Hindenburg has tutorials as well. They have really great video tutorials. What's my internet? Yes, here it is. There's some great videos, so you can watch the videos and actually step by step see how you might do something, different bits and pieces, so some basic editing, for instance, here. And the videos are quite good. I don't know if you have this experience, but often when I go on YouTube and look for a video on how to do something, the person spends about 15 minutes telling me like how to open the box, and I'm like, oh, fast forward to the bit that's important. In terms of some general information, transom.org is amazing. We go there all the time at the CMTO to find out the latest of what's happening, not only in technology, but in terms of how people are using their audio, how they're recording their audio, how they're putting stories together. And transom.org is based in the States. They have this great website where you can look at all sorts of different stuff, but the important and interesting stuff for editing is under the section called Techniques and Tools as well. And they have a search function, so you can search all sorts of different things in here. So it's got really great articles if you're looking for a little bit more to read, and it's also got some interesting sort of stuff about mixing, in particular documentary and feature style stuff. Okay, and Reaper also has videos as well if you want to look at their videos if you're having problems using it. And of course, my advice, when in doubt, Google it. or just go on YouTube, because there will be somebody who had the same problem and figured it out and put it up on YouTube. So I often use YouTube, particularly with Audacity, because there might be something that I'm, switching between a bunch of different programs, and I come back to Audacity. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't remember how to do that in Audacity. So I'll jump online and look it up. We don't need to have a memory anymore because Google remembers everything for us. And I just wanted to mention that, as Nicola said before, you learn a lot through trial and error and through practice. So you don't expect to be perfect when you start off editing. It's going to take a while, and it is a skill that improves with practice over time. I've been editing for, I don't know, nearly 20 years, I suppose, and there's still things that I get wrong. And I only learned about compression and equalization in the last year or so. So, it's definitely a work in progress, and you get better as you go by. Okay, so do we want to go some questions now, Nicola, or should we move on to the demonstration?
I think you should move on to the demonstration, and as long as Danny's collecting the questions.
Okay, great, excellent. Okay, so firstly we're going to have a look at Audacity. So we're going to do a couple of exercises, and if you have got Audacity on your computer, I'd really recommend you opening it up now. Hopefully you've all installed it already, but if you could open it up now, just on a screen to the side, you should still be able to see my screen. You can actually split the screens or move your windows around so that you can see my screen, and you can also see your own Audacity mix window. So if you open it up, just so that you've got it open, because we're going to have a little bit of a look at a really basic edit, and for some of you this might be way too basic, so just stay with us, and we're going to look at the sort of concept of how we might approach that edit. So I guess the overarching thing for approaching an edit is that we tend to do a content edit first, and then we do a cosmetic or some fine editing after that. So I think one thing that I've seen happen a lot is that people tend to get bogged down in the nitty-gritty and the fine content editing at the beginning and waste time, and then they've edited all of this content that they don't end up using. So it's a really good idea to go through and listen to your entire audio once, twice, maybe 3 times, work out exactly the bits and pieces in that you want to use, and create an edit plan. So you might not have have heard of an edit plan before. You might never have used one before, but we try and encourage people to get their head around that idea. And an edit plan might be as simple as you having a notebook where you're writing down, there's that section where so-and-so talks about when they were in the war, and then there was a section when so-and-so talks about what it was like coming home. So just writing it down so that you have a good idea of the bits and pieces that you want to use, so you don't waste time kind of editing up the sections that you're not going to use.
Can I just say, when Geordie and I are teaching features and documentary making, it's at this point that people freeze. They just get overwhelmed. They don't know what to get rid of and what not to. So the first thing is use non-destructive editing. Keep a copy of your originals in folders so you're not scared to cut. That's the first thing that's really important if you do a recording. Make a copy and edit it. The second thing I would say to you is this, like, an edit plan is a great idea, but I never use them. Even though we teach that that's what you should do, I tend to make notes the way that Geordie is saying, but also I tend to kind of listen to my reactions. If there's a piece of audio that I really like, I pull it out because I know I'm going to use it. So it's almost like clearing away the clutter the first time. You don't worry about a question that you asked that you didn't ask that well and you're trying to edit to make yourself sound better. Don't do that at that point, because your listening has to be from a distance in the first instance. Don't get caught up in cutting out single words, but get caught up in either taking out the bits you like or getting rid of the things that you don't want to use. Either way, it works.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to do a really basic edit now of a phone number. So you should have downloaded that from the Dropbox. If you've got it there, what I'd like you to do is go and open it up. So we're in the Audacity window at the moment, and hopefully everyone can see that okay. Is it coming up for you, Nicola?
Yeah. It's
That's
blank,
totally
but
fine.
it's there.
Blank. It's blank. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to open. We're going to open a file. So I just went File, Open. I have my phone number file here. So at the moment it's an MP3. So I'm going to open that up, and you can see it come up on the screen. There will be a bit of delay between me and you. So if everyone wants to do that on their own computer as well, our exercise here will be to top and tail it, which a lot of you are probably familiar with, and then we're actually going to edit out the even numbers in this recording. So basically we're just going to do some cutting. Just having a look at some of the tools in Audacity. I haven't got a little highlighter, maybe it'll come up here. Here we go. Up here we've got our play button. We've also got our backwards and forwards buttons there. This is our little toolbox that we use. We have the cursor, the envelope tool, which I'll look at in a minute, and the move tool. So they're the main important ones, particularly for mixing. We have cut, copy, and paste here as well. So they're sort of the main ones that you use when you're editing in Audacity. So I'll go back to my marker. So it's really simple for people who've never done any editing before. It's kind of like, think of it as a Word document. You're basically going in, putting your cursor in, and selecting the bit that you don't want. So all I did there was click and drag. Now I know that I don't want this because when I play it, there's nothing there. It's just quiet. You won't be able to hear that, but if you're playing it on your computer, you'll be able to hear it. So I don't need that bit, but you see how I've left myself a little bit of space before the first bump there, before the first waveform. So that's topped it. I'm going to tail it now, so I'll just take the end off because I know
You're
that's
left-clicking and dragging?
I'm left-clicking and dragging. That's it.
Thank you.
And then I pressed delete because that's one of the things about editing is that you want to reduce your mouse miles. You want to use your keyboard as much as possible because editing is a very, it puts a lot of strain on your wrist as well when you're editing with your mouse all the time. So try and use your keyboard as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to have a listen to this file now. So I'll just pull my headphones off so you guys can hear it too.
0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Could you hear that?
Yeah, we could, and just keep in mind, people, that there's a bit of a lag between what we see and what we hear, but you'll see it the way it works on your own computer if you play it for yourselves. You might want to try that now.
Okay. So my aim now is to cut out the even numbers. So if you've got yours up and you've topped and tailed it, what you need to do now is go in and select the even numbers and delete them. But you want to leave a little bit of space between each number so that it still sounds natural. And this is what Nicola was talking about before in terms of keeping the natural breath. We don't want it to sound robotic throughout it. And we'll have a listen to what a robotic one sounds like later. So how I do that is I'm pressing my space bar. You'll hear the noise probably coming through my mic. Pressing my space bar to play, or I can use the green play button up here.
0, 1, 2.
Like, okay, there is a odd number, and then here is my even number, number 2. So I've just highlighted number 2 because I want to get rid of them. When I press delete, it shifts everything back. So I can see that I've got just space there now. So I'll continue.
3, 4.
There's 4. Deleting that.
5, 6.
There's 6. Now 6 drags on a little bit. So it's a case where you're really using your ears and your eyes at the same time. What might help sometimes too is using our zoom button up here, where you zoom right in so that you can actually clean up all the little bits and pieces around it, and then zooming out again if you want to look at your whole piece. So I'll delete that number.
7, 8.
There's 8. Okay. Here's my final piece. I'm going back to the start. I can use that purple button to get back to the start. And let's see what it sounds like.
0, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9.
Wow, I definitely know I think, is 0 an even number or an odd number? Is it a number at all? Well, I can see some problems with this so far, is that I've got a big space in here, and I've got a little bit of mouth noise as well there, so I'm going to go in and do some cosmetic cleaning up now. So I've just deleted that. I'll have a listen.
3, 5.
I can hear some other mouth noises in there. That's Paris making weird noises on the microphone.
3, 5, 7, 9.
So you can edit that according to your own sort of desires of how you think it should sound. You might make them a lot tighter if you want it to go faster, or you might put a little bit more space in between each one. But what we've basically done now is a cleanup of this edit. We haven't moved anything around. All we've done is just cleaned it up so that it sounds clearer and neater. Okay, so if anyone's had a go at that, let us know how yours sounded out. Sounds at the end there. But the next part I'm going to show you is just how to export this out so that you can keep your file, because file management is very important. I might come back and work on this later. So I'm going to firstly save my project, and that will save my Audacity session so that I can come back in and work on it and add some more bits and pieces. Okay, so I'm just going to save it in my folder, audio to edit. I'm going to call it phone number, and I'm going to give it my name, and that way I know that it's mine. So you'll see that that will save us an AUP file. Save project as is fine, yep. Okay, but say for instance I want to send this to my buddy and be like, hey, what do you think? How does this sound so far? I don't want to send them the AUP file because that's a session file. And all of these projects are pretty much the same. They'll have session, all of these programs, sorry, will have session files, and they'll also have an option for you to either export the file as an MP3 or a WAV. Oh, looks like we've lost audio. Hello, can you hear me now?
I can still hear you, Geordie.
Okay. Looks like a few people can hear me now. Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, it looks like everyone's sort of saying that if you're hearing us, press yes or type yes. I mean, if you're not hearing us, oh, there we go. People are typing yes. I would suggest that we're back in effect, mate.
All right. Okay, Danny, if you wouldn't mind putting a message in the chat box to say that if they can't hear us, they can catch up on the recording.
Yep.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so as I was saying, I want to send this to a friend now. So the way to do that is I need to export it out as an MP3 file. So this is an important step because I can't send them the AUP file because they will not be able to hear it. So I'm going to File, Export Audio, and I'm making sure that I'm going to save it in the right folder, which is somewhere around here. Let's just put it on my desktop for now. Now, this is giving me some options. I can save it as a WAV, or I can save it as an MP3. I want to email it to someone, so I'm going to save it as an MP3. It's asking me to put some metadata in. You can do that if you want to, and I'm not going to. And then also, you'll notice this comes up when you're using Audacity. When you want to save a file, and I think Denise mentioned this before, as an MP3, you need to have an extra little piece of software. You can actually find that here. It says, to get a free copy of LAME, click here, and you can download it straight away, and it'll go in. Or you might have downloaded it already, and it will be located somewhere on your computer so you can browse to it. So I'm not going to do it right now, but you can come back and do that. So that means I'm just going to export the audio as a WAV file. Okay, so that means if I go to my desktop, here's my file here, phone number Geordie. I can pop that in an email, or I can put it in Dropbox and get my buddy to listen to it before I do any more editing on it. Okay, so that's a really basic edit, and I think a few people had a go at that and found it quite easy to use. So I'm just going to move on now and show you how to do a really simple mix in Audacity, because Audacity is one of the things that people think, oh, you can only do basic editing in it, but it's actually not the case. You can do some really complex editing in it as well. So we will close our phone number. We don't want to use that anymore, so I'm just going to close that. I'm still in Audacity. You can see my window is still up there. And I'm going to open up another file, and you should recognize this voice. This is a community service announcement, or a CSA. I think some other people are losing audio now. Okay, so I'll play through a little bit of this. I won't play the whole thing, but I'll play you through a little bit of it.
Are those levels okay? Or do we want to up a bit louder? You can edit that out.
They can optimize it.
Oh, I'm going to optimize that later on. Hello, I'm an optimizer. Those levels are okay?
Yeah, that's great.
What you hear on community radio is governed by the Community Radio Codes of Practice. The Codes of Practice cover matters relating to program content. The Codes of Practice...
Okay, that's enough. That was Danny. Did everyone hear that okay?
I heard it okay, and
Yep.
I'm glad you stopped at that point because I think I started swearing.
I think you did too.
Which is a breach of the codes.
So I'm gonna do what we did before, just top and tail it. And if you want to open this one up as well in your own window, have a go at it as well. We're going to top and tail, and then I'm just going to find that first bit.
Hello, I'm an optimizer.
Not that bit.
What you hear on community radio is governed by the Community Radio Codes of Practice. The Codes of Practice cover matters relating to program content.
Okay, so I'm just going to use that. That's the only bit that I want to use. So I've got his...
What you hear on community...
I've got that little bit of audio there. Now, it sounds pretty good. It's at a nice level. I'm going to put a little bit of music in underneath it just to make it pop a little bit. So what I need to do is I actually need to import some audio. So I'm going to I won't add a new track. I'm going to import. Where we go? File, import, audio. I've got this little bit of sample music that I found. I'll open it up. You can see it processing there, and you can see how it's come in as a separate track underneath the first track. So I can actually just listen to this track on its own if I click solo. Okay, we got some crazy music there that might work. It might not work, so I'm going to have a go. But if I play them both at the same time, this is what it sounds like.
Community radio is governed by the Community Radio Codes of Practice.
Okay, pretty obvious problem there. The fact that the music is much louder than Danny's voice, plus it comes in at the exact same time as him. So I'm going to do a little bit of mixing now. Really basic tools that you use to do this. We use our move tool and our envelope tool. The move tool, or time shift tool, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring Danny's voice across a little so it actually starts, you know, when the music's had a little bit of time to start off. And I might listen back to that and think, oh yeah, it'll fit in right there. So I'm actually just moving it across the screen. And now my other problem.
How are you moving it across the screen? Sorry.
Can you see that I've clicked the time shift tool and I'm clicking on the piece of audio that's Danny, and I'm using the little time shift tool. So I don't know if you can actually see my cursor.
Everyone got that? Yep, we can.
Cool.
I just want you to repeat it.
That's great. I'm moving it back and forward across the screen like that. Yeah. All right, so I've got it there. So now my other problem is this music is too loud, so I need to use my envelope tool. So that's the one with the blue line at the top there. I come down to my track, Kalimba, and what I'm doing, you can see the two little double arrows there. That's so you can actually set points on this blue line at the top. So I'm placing a point at the very beginning, dropping it there and clicking. You can see what's actually doing is changing the volume of my audio. I'm going to put another one here, and this is something you can play around with and have a lot of fun with, really. I'll zoom in now because I really want to get a bit closer into seeing where my audio fades in and out. So at the very beginning, what I'm doing is I'm clicking on the point that I set, and I'm dragging down, and I'm shrinking the volume by doing that. So I've made a fade in essentially there. And now I'm actually going to pull the volume down underneath the track so that it's not as loud. You can see the decibels on the side there. And I'll put another one here. And I want my music to fade out completely. So I'm just clicking and pulling down. I'll bring that down a little bit. So we've got a little bit more of a smooth curve here. It goes a little bit quieter, and then it sort of fades out. That fade out's a bit messy, so I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit. So it's really just a matter of playing around with it. And then I'll grab my cursor again and have a listen. Probably sounds really bad.
What you hear on community radio is governed by the community radio.
Okay, so the music is still too loud, so what I'll do is I'll go back and get my envelope tool and I'll just bring it right down. And you might find that the cool thing about the envelope tool is that you can bring it up and bring it down so it might peak. You can play around with it. It's like painting. So I've just done some little funky things there. I don't know if that'll sound like anything.
What you hear on community radio is governed by the Community Radio Codes of Practice. The Codes of Practice cover matters relating to program content.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a play around there. So someone asked if you made a mistake or if you have done the wrong thing, is there something you can do to change that? So the other great thing is that the undo function in most of this software is pretty good. You can use it a number of times. So in terms of edit, up the top there, you can do undo envelope. And you can pretty much do that all like heaps and heaps of times, or so that you can go back to what it was. The other thing that Nicola was talking about before is non-destructive editing, so making sure that you've kept a copy of the original somewhere. So if you do really screw something up, you can go back to the original. So undo. The other thing I use is Control-Z. Control-Z. Yeah.
Control-Z. Yeah.
Control-Z.
Can I just interrupt? Just someone earlier talked about using filters and noise reduction at the very beginning of the editing process. And I'm sure Geordie has an opinion about that, but certainly what we've learnt in these last few years of teaching the features and documentary making from the sound engineers at places like the ABC and Radio National especially, is it's probably better to leave all of that stuff till the end. So you wait until you've done all your editing and then you start kind of improving the sound of the actual recording. And there's lots of different ways of doing that, which we may or may not get to tonight because it's a bit more advanced. But certainly I wouldn't play around too much with the sound until after you've done the editing. Because you want to kind of see how much you're using of it as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It does get a little tricky when you're using something like Audacity that doesn't have sort of master tracks and things like that on it, but it is still possible. So that's definitely something to kind of think about, not doing that really like cosmetic stuff until the end. Okay, so I don't know how if you had a go, but there's like, those files are in there for you to have a bit of a play doing a mix like this. This is a really simple mix. Like you can put as many tracks as you want into Audacity. I don't think there's any limit. So I could then put some sound effects in down the bottom here. I could put more of his voice in. I could just keep going and going and going until I have a really complex piece. I can rearrange Danny's voice as you set up here. If I wanted to rearrange it, I can just copy that bit of his voice there. What I'm doing is I'm just clicking, dragging. I'm copying it, or I can cut it. I'll cut it. And I could put it at the start here instead, so I'll paste it in there. So I've totally rearranged what he said.
The codes of practice cover matters relating to program content. What you hear on community.
And I've also put some space in there as well, so you can move things around, change the pace of your recording, that sort of thing. So what I've got now is a multi-track on my screen, and what I'd like to do is actually save this as a project so I can come back and work on it again. But I also need my buddy to have a listen to how it's sounding at the moment so they can give me some advice. So I will firstly save project as. It's giving me that warning again, which is handy. So this is my CSA. Save that. Might take a little bit of time. While that's doing that, should we go to a couple of questions now?
Danny?
Sorry about that, my microphone was off. Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Adam Watkins had a question, is Hindenburg similar to Adobe Audition, that I think Nicola answered fairly comprehensively there, and if people are wanting to find out more about Hindenburg, I'd suggest getting in touch with the CMTO. Of course, Hindenburg is there specifically for broadcast journalism, whereas Adobe Audition is pretty much any sort of audio editing. There was a question from Carmel in regards to settings for a compression in Audacity for recording. Now, I would suggest, and Geordie, you might disagree with me on this one, that compression and how you use compression is very much dependent on the sort of sound files that you're working with. If you've got sort of a file with not much volume, you might need to use a lot of compression, but if you've got a fairly good sounding audio file, then compression is something you'd use with a very light touch and sparingly.
I think that's good advice, and I've got a couple of resources for you in a moment that I can show you about compression, so take down the notes around those. Compression, I think, is something that you kind of probably don't have to mess with too much, in particular because when our things are actually broadcast on our particular radio shows, we have a compressor in the broadcast chain, so it is actually doing a lot of work. So if your audio is, really, really crazy in terms of the dynamic range, then you might need a compression, but it's possible that you don't even need to use it.
Can we talk about what compression actually is, just very briefly, because some people here, given it's a basic class, might not even know what you use it for. Danny, do you want to answer that, or Geordie?
I'll have a go at my version of what I think compression is. It is a reduction of volume in a sound file. So if you'll look at the sound files there on the screen, there's sort of the little waves, sort of the peaks and troughs will also correspond to the volume of that file. With compression, you're essentially reducing that volume, reducing that silence, and sort of boosting the volume that's there available in your sound file. So if you're using that compression too much, it can make it sound really hot and loud, and will start making your waveform look like a big fat block, and there's no audio dynamics there. But it is that's why I would suggest that compression is something that you use with a very light touch. It's there, it can make things sound a great deal better than what they are, but it can't sort of fix an audio file that's not very good to begin with. And we had someone there ask at normalizing. Normalizing and compression, they're all sort of very similar sort of things. Like they're sort of ways of taking that waveform and just boosting the volume, reducing the silence.
And there is a bit of a trend away now of not using normalization, of actually working with a compressor instead of normalization. I think the audio engineers we talk to are horrified at our teaching of normalization, Nicola.
I would just like to say that I was always totally anti-normalization, but all of the young people at CBAA just laughed at me and said I didn't know what I was talking about. I think that, and then when the ABC engineers came in and said, no, never normalize, they all listened. So that was kind of funny. But normalization and compression, I think the experiences I've had using them when I've been inexperienced is that I've ended up making a mess of my files. Like I took out too much sound. I made things sound too much the same and not normal. not natural. So I would steer away from all of that in the editing process. I think that's something that you do after you finish your editing and you're in the mixing stage, because they're two different kinds of listening as well. And this is the problem, is when you listen in editing, you listen so many times to the piece that you're actually losing your judgment about how it sounds. So I would suggest you come back to compression and filters and all sorts of noise reduction, graphic equalization at the end, after you've edited it all, and then you have a bit of a break from listening to it, because you can go mad and not be able to tell what the hell you've done and what you haven't done.
And I think it might be important to note here too, Nicola, is that a lot of the editing that we're particularly talking about is the side of editing that you might do on an interview or you might do on a piece of content for your program. When it comes to making sponsorship spots and bits of that kind of audio, it's a different sort of, I think it's a little bit different in terms of the way that you use some of those effects, because of the sort of, I guess, I don't want to use the word commercial, but the commercial sounding aspect that a lot of those sponsorship announcements do have.
I should point out that Carmel's clarified a question. She wanted to know what the general settings are for compression that you can set and forget and not worry about, because she found that hers at home was sounding a bit tinny.
Right.
And also sort of other people talking about hard limiting, few arguments there.
Good.
Yeah, there's always arguments about normalization.
I think we could probably do a webinar about that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think kind of what most of the people that do it a lot say is that normalization is can make things sound unnatural. It's unnecessary. It's actually much more important to listen to every section of your file. This is especially if you're doing a kind of feature or documentary, where you really, need to be engaged with what's happening with it. And also there's a whole lot of stuff on Transom. In fact, there's a beautiful piece about loudness and amplitude and the differences between that. I think that's also something that is worth taking a look at. I think if you're just starting out, and let's just remind people that this session is for people who the very basics of editing, that you're much better off trying to get a really good, clean recording and just concentrate on your editing skills. Someone did ask, Danny, I don't know if you saw it, how do you make more space in between the numbers? Or
yes, that was the next one.
And maybe
I was going to bring up.
Show Geordie.
Sorry, I'll
tricks.
Address Carmel. We'll get back to you on that one. I think the compression and limiting argument and what the best thing to do is something that could go for ages, but I'm happy to give you a call at some stage, have a bit of an email exchange with you and just sort of go over a few things. But I think it is one of those things where there is no set and forget. It's something that you sort of have to look at on an individual basis and work out what is best.
Yeah, I'd suggest that we should get our engineers that teach the documentary makers to do a session just about compression, graphic equalize, and I believe they won't talk about normalization because they don't think you should be doing it. Normalization as well.
They might tell you why, which would be good.
It's another session, and we can spend a whole hour doing it.
Definitely, and that's all that mastering stuff I'd love to cover in a separate session. So to answer your question about how to make some more space between the numbers, so I kind of just did it there. So I'll bring up the phone number file again, just so you can kind of quickly look at it. So there's our phone numbers. So you actually want a little bit more space between there. So there's a couple of ways that you could do it. You can actually make a cut so that you can move it across. I'm just trying to do it. Hang on. I've actually just moved it. The other thing that you can do is if you've got some nice silence there, what I've done is I've selected the silence and I'm copying that silence. Copy. And I'm just going to paste it in again there.
And you can paste it more than once. Just be very careful when you're using that technique of copying and pasting silence that it is actually silence and not breath, because then you start to create 2 or 3 breaths, and that's a very noticeable thing in editing.
It sure is.
So you're
Exactly.
listening to the breaths as much as you're listening to people talking.
Yeah,
Yes,
you want that nice natural sound.
And if I was to just interject here with a quick tip about that, it's also a good idea with your WAV files, if you're hearing clicking or pops or anything that's weird like that, to try and zoom in and on it as much as possible, because even just the tiny little fragment of sound that you might not be able to see when you're looking at the waveforms as they are on the screen right now, your ear will still be able to tell them, even if the visual representation doesn't show it up.
Yeah, Zoom is your friend. I love the zooming in and out.
And some of
Okay,
the other tricks, can I just mention a couple of tricks? Sometimes you might do an edit that ends up too close, and what you can do is go and copy a breath from somewhere else and put it in between to make it sound more natural. The other thing that happens at Radio National in the documentary making stuff that's done is that, you know, someone might say a word, but somehow they're a little bit off mic or something, but they've said that same word somewhere else, and it does work. You can take a word from somewhere else and put it there. I have in the past used as a very strategic word in my editing, not cutting it out, but actually putting it in to put two bits that didn't really go together. So within the limits of still being, you know, representing the person properly, you can do quite a bit of that, and that's really what Geordie was referring to as the cosmetic editing, that you could fix up, you go through on the final listen, I think, and just clean up where you've cut too quick or whatever. Also, just one other thing is that if you have, coming back to the notion that you have to have a good recording at the beginning to start, it's not, editing's not going to make a bad recording sound that much better. So good recording is important. If there is a strong background noise like music or cars going by or even aeroplanes going overhead, once you start editing, the edits will all be noticeable because you're also editing that background noise, and it's really amazing how clear it is.
Yeah, so it is important, and you generally can't use noise reduction to get rid of anything except a very consistent sound throughout your piece. I wanted to just play two pieces really quickly so you can sort of hear some bad edits, and we can talk about some of the pitfalls that come into play there. We haven't got much time left, so I'll just do this really quickly. Hopefully I can find them. It was set up, but it's gone. 1 second.
And also, because we are running short of time, and if people do want to find out more about it, I'd urge you to have a look at the different courses that are available via the CMTO, where you'll be able to dive a bit deeper into the whole audio editing thing.
That's
Indeed,
right.
we're actually asking stations at the moment to tell us what they want at their stations in the 2017-2018 year. So if you're at a station that needs to have some training happen, it's a really good time to contact the CMTO now.
Okay, let's have a quick listen to this audio.
Today I'm talking to Maria Slovacek, who's a broadcaster on the Spanish language program at 3ZZZ in Melbourne, and we're profiling Melbourne's Spanish-speaking community. Well, firstly, Maria, Melbourne's Spanish-speaking community seems to be a very visible one. The annual Hispanic Festival closes off Johnston Street in Fitzroy and attracts big crowds. Is it a large community or just a very busy one?
Probably it's an active community. I don't know what you mean about large, but it's probably about 25,000 Spanish-speaking citizens here in Victoria.
And where have they all come from?
They're coming from different countries, Latin American countries and Spain as well.
How many Spanish speakers actually come from Spain and how many from the Latin American countries?
From Spain, it's an elderly community now. It's quite large. From Latin America, I know that they are from 22 different countries. I don't know the district at the moment, but they are from every country in Latin America.
So you can kind of hear throughout that some of the, that was a hastily edited piece, and that what we've got in there as a result is breaths that are repeated. We've got parts of the questions and answers are cut off. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we've just got to be really careful when it comes to
too close.
Edits are far too close together.
Really close. Yeah. And
there's not enough pacing in that.
No, it's very fast. And I think, obviously if the guy that asked the questions edited it, he was, really obsessed with how he sounded, because he did a lot of editing in his questions, all of which I could hear. And I think, that is a really common thing, that people get really caught up in editing their questions to sound okay. The other thing is, when someone has an accent, you have to be really careful not to cut into that accent, an accent other than an Australian accent, because, there's a kind of rhythm there that is really quite beautiful in Spanish, and
Sorry, guys.
we were losing that a little bit.
It's just showing the holding screen at the moment. Oh, there we are.
Okay. Have you got another bad file, George?
No, we're back on.
We're back on now. All right. So, one other bad file. Where is it? Okay. This is another one.
Radio Skid Row is your community radio station and is bound by the Community Radio Codes of Practice. The codes outline the standards which all community radio stations must adhere to, including programming, sponsorship, and management standards. You can obtain a copy of the codes by visiting the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia website, www.cbaa.org.au. And don't forget, keep supporting community radio by listening to Radio Skid Row 88.9 FM.
Oh, reggae version.
Okay, so what was wrong with that?
It had reggae music under it when it was meant to be serious.
Excuse me, I think the music was way too loud.
Music is too loud, yes. Music was too loud, and I guess it didn't have any kind of variation in it. Oh, thanks, Artie. Thanks for joining us. So being really careful about that. It didn't have any kind of variation in the pace of that music as well. It was just going through.
Yeah, in some ways for me, it's about the positioning of the voice. The voice seemed to be kind of in behind the music, as opposed to really what you're trying to create is the voice being in front of the music and the music being behind. But the person that read it sounded really good.
Yeah, she sounded good.
Yeah, it was that call me, I'm waiting voice.
Yeah, we might have to wind up in a little bit, sorry guys, if that's all right. But I think it's a topic that we should revisit.
Yes, this is a hard one to get through in a short amount of time, I'm afraid. But just wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the other pitfalls that you might come across. We've covered most of them, but the other one that I really want to stress is the file management stuff. So many people get really frustrated because they lose their files or they haven't saved them properly. So making sure that you save your files as you go and make copies of everything is really, really important, and will save you a lot of frustration later as well. And the other thing too is be really careful of overproducing something. So you do want your pieces to still sound natural and to still sound like the human being that you spoke to. So if you feel like you've spent 5 hours on your editing, maybe you've spent too long if it's just a really short piece. Perhaps you're doing too much to it and you don't need to do that much to it. So have a think about it in those terms. We'll finish up now. I just wanted to put up on the screen that link there to Isotope. It has some really great stuff about equalization and compression for further reading. And one of the pro tips that came from one of our engineers was have a sample piece of audio that is the sound you're aiming for, and then you can adjust your mastering settings to match that. So that's probably something we can go into a little bit more when we have another session on that.
Can I just put a plug in for that Isotope site where if you go to it, you'll actually all the compression, all the men who wanted to talk about compression have left now, I think, but where you can actually listen to graphic equalizing and compression, and where it really explains it, and also there's audio samples showing you what it does. It's a really great little tutorial in there. Maybe you can click on that link and just show them, Jordy, because it's not as easy to find on the website as it should be. It was something that I think I just stumbled across. Isotope is actually a plugin that you can put into software like Adobe Audition, and it really gives you so much more ability to manipulate the sound.
Yes.
But what's great is the digital audio basics, for example, and then you can also, I would start with digital audio basics, but then I would go back and look at the compression and graphic equalization and just watch the videos. They're really clever, they're very short, and they break it down really nicely.
Yeah, they're fantastic stuff for that info. Okay, so that's it from us this evening. I think we just had a link to CMTO's site there if you want to learn a little bit more about the Pathways training. I know someone mentioned that they've got their Pathways training coming up this weekend, so that's fantastic. Please get in touch with us if you would like some more training at your station, especially, particularly around any editing stuff. We'd love to come and work with you.
Excellent.
And Ish has said that you should have more than one backup, and Ish is the IT person who also suggested never Googling something for free because you're likely to attract sharks trying to rip you off. But he suggested more than one backup is a good thing. Someone's mentioned how we have lots of experience. Yeah, we do, and that's why, and most of the CMTO trainers do. That's why you should get your station to sign up to CMTO training, and we can send someone out to the station, which is a much better way to learn about these kind of hands-on kind of skills that you need in the radio station. So please, if you're at a station and you're just a volunteer, not in charge or anything, contact the person in the station who does organize the training and tell them that the CMTO does training at stations for free.
Yes, and also, I mean, it's a really, really difficult topic, and I would suggest the best way to learn anything about audio editing is to just keep on with it, because it took me several years of not being trained to become proficient with it. And although it is very difficult and time consuming, it is something that's rewarding, because you're sort of starting with a piece of audio that might not be anything at all, and you're shaping it into something that you want. And so I think the best way to learn about this is just to keep on keeping on with it.
Definitely. I back that. I endorse that.
Well, thank you very much. I was wondering if anyone was going to say that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I just wanted to mention that we kind of crammed what we would normally teach in 6 hours into 1 hour. Right.
That's right. Well, I think this is definitely a topic that we will be revisiting. Thank you so much, Geordie and Nicola of the CMTO, you legends.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It's very much appreciated. Next webinar will be 22nd of February, Easy Tricks to Grow Your Music Program and Network. And the one following that is 8th of March, Your Guide to Contributing to the National Features and Documentary Series. In 2017, all the CBAA CMTO webinars will be taking place 6:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time until Daylight Savings finishes. And because we're East Coast centric, because we're terrible people. But yeah, it'll be 6:30 on Wednesday evenings. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Thank you again to Geordie and Nicola on behalf of the CBAA. Good.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye.